Folks, we're going to kick things off with topic number one, and we got a lot of NFL stuff on the plate, but topic number one is Big Boy Bengals. Brandon, you know, the Bengals have been sort of one of those laughingstock teams in the NFL for a while, even when they had decent teams with Carson Palmer, you know, but they still had, and some of their other guys, they still were kind of not considered contenders. Now this year, you know, all of a sudden, after getting that number one pick, Joe Burrow, getting the 5th pick overall and picking Jamar Chase, Burrow and Chase look awesome. I mean, what do you think about their chances as a playoff contender this year out of Cincinnati?
I almost think it's a guarantee, honestly. The way that I've been seeing the Bengals play so far through these first few weeks of the season, and I mean, we're almost like 1/3 of the way through at this point, and they're looking really good. I have to think that was one of the best decisions in the history of the Bengals, pairing these two guys up together. And we're talking about Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Obviously, we've talked about Jamar Chase before on this show and the tear that he's on right now. Historic tear, and he's actually put himself now in rare air through the first 7 games, having over 700 yards receiving. I believe he's got 5 or 6 touchdowns. He is absolutely on fire right now, proving that he was worth that number one pick. And honestly, he might have been worth the number one pick overall at this point, playing better than the Trevor Lawrence. I get it. Trevor Lawrence doesn't have much around him right now. But right now, out of the rookies, this guy is lighting it up. And I think all the Bengals fans are certainly happy to see it. And like you said, you brought up those teams in the past with Ocho Cinco they had on that team as well. Yeah. You know, Carson Palmer and Ocho Cinco. And I have to agree, you know, they probably weren't a perennial power at that point, but they weren't one of the worst teams in the NFL. And you would think, I believe they got to the playoffs, but would get dispatched usually in the first round during that era of the Bengals. So I have to think that this team can go further than any Bengals team has possibly ever gone. And I know a Bengals team has made it to the Super Bowl, but I think this team does have the potential right now. I think right now the biggest question is on defense, because their offense is absolutely loaded with the 2 guys we just named of, but also at running back, Joe Mixon is unbelievable. I think he's a guy that flies under the radar and definitely does not get enough credit for what he does. We know it's a passing game in the NFL, but if you don't have any kind of run game to rely on, well, guess what? Teams will just drop back in coverage and not have to just, you know, play true or honest to it. So I think Joe Mixon does a great job of helping them keep it mixed up. But like I said, I think the real question for this Bengals team is how far they can go is going to be how far that defense can take them.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a big thing for them. I mean, you see the stars on the offense. Joe Burrow's, it just keeps getting better from last year. Very consistent too, and a lot of poise, a lot of good intangibles, along with being a good thrower of the football. You got Chase, who's having an awesome rookie year. T. Higgins is a good player. Tyler Boyd's a good player. Then you mentioned Joe Mixon. They can mix it up in a bunch of different ways. And then I can never pronounce the name of the tight end, but he can get in the mix as well too. So their offense, as long as they keep Joe Burrow upright, it seems like the last 2 years it's been that concern. And you saw him last year, you know, he was getting killed and then he tore his ACL. So I don't think anybody expected Burrow to come back this quickly from that injury, and then also to continue to improve after sort of a half of a rookie season. And then Chase struggled in the preseason with drops and so forth, and that's just gone bye-bye. I mean, he has no problem with it now. He's so explosive. And then with the other guys in the mix, and Joe Mixon's finally seems to be able to just have some space out on the field. I mean, before with Mixon, it was always, you know, he ran hard, but he would never have any room because teams would load the box against the Bengals. Well, now they can spread teams out, and Mixon has all the room and real estate to run. So, like you mentioned, I think it's the defense that has to be solid. They don't have to be a shutdown defense. They don't even have to be a top 10 defense. But if you're a middle-of-the-pack defense with this kind of offense that the Bengals have, as long as they stay healthy, as long as Joe Burrow is healthy, they're going to be a playoff contender, and we'll see what happens after that.
No, I think they're definitely going to make the playoffs. It's just how far will this team go on the arm of Joe Burrow, in the hands, per se, of Jamar Chase, and the legs of Joe Mixon. But I really do think the biggest question of this team is going to be that defense. Are they going to be, because in the playoffs, they're arguably going to have to face a team like the Arizona Cardinals, who we're going to talk about next, or the Dallas Cowboys. or maybe even the Green Bay Packers, led by Aaron Rodgers, who is, really turned it on these last few weeks. So there's a lot of good teams right now in the NFC. So I think that defense is going to have to step up. But just quickly before we move on, I think, Joe Burrow right now is by far leading the comeback player of the year award, in my opinion. I can't think of anybody else that right now had a huge injury or was out last year that is really bouncing back like this kid is right now and putting himself up there and leading his team to such a great record right now. And like you said, coming off a big injury, I don't think many people expected him to be doing this right now. So, hey, that's a great topic. We'll definitely be watching them going forward. But let's move on to topic number 2 tonight.